So this is AC Starlord, aka Awesome. Welcome back to my channel. And I finally watched Final Destination Bloodlines, where I was supposed to see this in theaters with two of my friends, but then we didn't get to go see it, and then they saw it on, I don't know, Prime or HBO Max because one of my friends has HBO Max. But regardless, they saw it, I just watched it, and what I have to say is this movie. This movie was good. It it's not, I wouldn't say it's bad. I mean, there's some things I disagree in here with. Again, like I have to, but I don't want to be that way, but that's how it's gonna be. So the beginning half of this is perfectly fine. Perfectly amazing, perfectly fine. Here's what I find that the girl in here has a premonition or a vision. And you find out later on, you find out Iris's vision later on in the film, but in the very beginning, everything's happening with a big giant on the big giant tower behind me. Well, big giant tower right there behind me here. And it's a fancy, dancy tower, and you dance, you have dinner, it's all the way at the top. Another film did this called Drop. Um, But I think Drop did it better than Final Destination, I gotta say. But Final Destination is to show you how things happen, like the glass could break, the bearings of the thing that's holding it down could break. Um, a whole bunch of different scenarios. And she sees those scenarios, she sees that kid throwing a penny and goes down and like the exhaust system and all that stuff like that, and makes a big problems for this tower behind me. And then all that happens, and pregnant. She was pregnant with her first child, lost her husband, and all that stuff like that. She saw that, and then she saved Candyman, or Tony Todd, Tony Todd, I think his name is in real life. She saved that JB when she was a little kid, when he was a little kid. But before we see the actual vision of how things changed, how she saw the vision and how she would prevent that from happening, they both died. Of course, that was just the vision. And then later on, we see that Iris changed everything. But then when we go to modern day with Iris's granddaughter and the family, that family shouldn't have been alive. Apparently, that family shouldn't have been alive. Hence the title Bloodlines. Hence the title Bloodlines. Um, shouldn't be alive. So if they're not supposed to be alive, they're supposed to be dead. So there are scenarios where the family is supposed to die. Like Iris dies when the granddaughter meets her because she doesn't believe her, and she had to prove to her that that could happen. So her house was a safe haven from death. Because when you find out later on in the movie, I'm about to get to why it's a safe haven, and I'll get to some other parts that like I said, I enjoy this. This is different from the other movies, but then again, they do mention one character from one of the first two movies that even my friend said, "Oh, you really don't need to watch the other Final Destinations to watch this one." Well, they kind of do, because they mention a character in the first two movies. So, I mean, if you're paying attention to those movies, like I binge watched them before we could. go see this. So the thing is, in a way, you don't have to, but in a way, you do because there's a name drop. But the scenarios of the girl of the granddaughter of Iris and the family dying, you can see it. Like there's so one of the family members breaks a glass. The glass goes into the ice thing they have and the barbecue, like the little barbecue pit thing. Also has a little ice thing on the side of glass of a shard, piece of shard glass goes in the ice, goes into another cup, and someone can drink that. That happens. There's a rake underneath a trampoline. Someone can jump and stab themselves with that. A lawnmower, all that stuff like that. Propane, and those things happen. The propane thing goes off. All those things happen, but none of them died, except Howard. One of the people in the family, I think the uncle of the family, dies from jumping on the trampoline, getting off the trampoline, and then stepping on that same glass that was in the glass, shark glass, then getting run over by a lawnmower after his mother died from, a bar going through her face. So and then that happens, and then the granddaughter's trying to warn everyone in the family, our cousins and all that stuff, that could happen. And then after that, his daughter dies by a leaf blower by telling her brother before that a leaf blower. I mean, from a little sharp object that you trim trees can hit into the leaf blower or leaf blower with a ball, and the two kids playing soccer ball hit him with the ball, hit the ball with the guy the leaf blower, hit that um thing that you trim trees with, and then go into the dumpster. Well, she goes in the dumpster, and then they try to save her, and she dies. And then before that, her brother almost dies from putting a piercing in someone's tongue. He almost dies from a chain from they had some chains on the ceiling, a chain falling down, hooking onto his nose ring, the fan spinning around, and then the whole place is on fire. And he ends up being alive, and that's where we see before his sister dies. And then, oh yeah, my friend said the shop was on fire. Well, good thing I had the leather jacket. I almost died. And then a tattoo, and he finds out he's not even he finds out he's not even like related to Howard. It's someone else because his mom had an affair when Howard and her were having problems. So he wasn't really part of the bloodline anyways. But then he ends up dying later on with his brother because he has a half. Apparently, he's a half brother by an MRI machine, and he tries to kill his brother by peanut allergy because he found out from JB that was saved by Iris that the only way two ways you can stop death, and he was tired of people asking him advice about it because he's done and tired, he's getting sick. Only two ways. You can either die yourself or take a life. And then we said take them and come back to life. So their plan was to do that, and then they both end up dying from an MRI machine and also a peanut allergy, and one of them dying from peanut allergy. And then the last three people left was the mom and the granddaughter and the brother, right? They go to Iris's house, bad things start happening, explosion, all that stuff like that. The mom dies. He saves, the brother saves his sister, and then he's going to his prom date house, and then this is the doctor that we love your brother and all that stuff like that, and then we heard that your brother saved you, but technically your heart didn't stop. Technically, you weren't dead. Like, you weren't dead, and technically your heart didn't stop, so technically you were still alive. You would have to be completely dead. And then the same penny that was in that book fell out a little bit later in the movie. Old lady picks it up trying to buy cookies. The same penny falls out and goes into a crack on the railroad track, and then the railroad, then the train goes off the railroad tracks, going to the neighborhood, and then the granddaughter and her brother running off away from the train, and then two logs hit them. But that's the whole point. They ended it off. They ended this with a vision not coming true. But here's the problems I have with this. How does Iris save Death himself? Now, when she said he is about to plan something later on when they go to Iris's house, you already met Death. Death was JB. The whole time in the other franchises, Death was JB. JB was also a helper, telling people how to survive death, but he was also death at the same time, essentially. But the funny fact is, Tony Todd, aka Candyman, was also really sick at that time, and he died right after making this movie. So ironically, when he says, when ironically his character JB says, quite frankly, I'm sick, and quite frankly, I'm tired of people asking me advice. I'm sick as much as Iris. I'm retiring, and I'm enjoying my last few moments. He was actually talking about actually his real self, metaphorically, because he was actually sick and he was actually gonna die because this is his last film. This is Candyman's last film. But Iris saved Death, so Iris and Death himself protected her from dying by building her house to protect from death. There's death, and then there's death himself, which was also JB. And then there's the other physical form of death where death is out there causing final destinations. So, did I like this movie? I did like this movie, but the bloodline thing with the family, that's cool and add that, but like, I was thinking more like, okay, you have this new character, and then you have some of the old characters have children, and then their bloodline was interrupted. That's what I was thinking that was going to happen because you had all these other movies, and you had the final last movie that I saw before this one end up back up to the first movie on the plane. What if some of those characters, like the teenager in there, or Kimberly, oh yeah, like Kimberly, they mentioned from the first two movies also survived death as well, and that's why I said you don't really technically have to watch those other ones, but you kind of do because they mentioned that name drop, but only mentioned it once by JB. And that's what I was thinking Bloodlines was going to be. Bloodlines was going to be like the teenage boy and then the girl that was in the one in the second one that helped the teenage boy, and then the other movies, one through five, I believe. Some of those people that survived would have children, got married, have children, and their bloodline would be interrupted by the final destination, by death or JB himself or death. So JB or death, the final destination version of death where bad things are happening. That's what I was thinking about. The new girl, and then some of the people that had kids, some of the original cast people had kids, and she teams up with them to stop Final Destination happening because it's also ruining their bloodline. But it's different because it's actually talking about an actual family of Iris, where she was in a tower, and the people in the tower were not supposed to die. They were supposed to die, and they lived, and they lived. There's 1,000 people that lived, and they were supposed to die, and the rest of those families were supposed to. Those rest of those families are not supposed to exist. Even her family was not supposed to exist. So that made it more interesting than what I thought. I thought they were going to take the kids or those people that were in the other movies had kids. They had a bloodline, and then it was those ancestors that ruined their bloodline. and Final Destination's coming after them. But it's the same concept, what I just said, but it was more Iris's family than anything else. Now, are they gonna make are they gonna make a Final Destination after Bloodlines? It looks like they are. It looks like they ended it off with a cliffhanger where those two people died, but it looked like more like a dream sequence, how they ended it, with them both dying from logs. So hopefully they do a part two to this, and then maybe that girl and her brother can help another family that premonition from Iris's book and Iris's research that, you know, exists. Because you only reason why you would end the movie that way if there was going to be a sequel and they can prevent from that from happening, right? They will show you in the next movie how they can stop the train from, you know, getting to them because in Iris's granddaughter, she saw the old red car and then and then his brother's prom date dressed up like Iris, and then she saw the train kind of coming towards them, so that's kind of leading up to because JB was playing with the train. Iris had a blue polka dot-ish kind of dress, and her great grandfather, before he died, drove a old-fashioned car that was red. But that's the only reason why you leave it off with a cliffhanger to make another movie, right? So hopefully they make another movie or Final Destination Bloodlines 2 or something like that or whatever, because that's how what other way you would that's the only way and only way I would think that would offer you guys opportunity to see the other families that were supposed to not exist being the next movie with Iris's granddaughter and the brother helping them out by the ending of this cliffhanger being a dream sequence and then stopping that dream sequence from happening or happening and making it reality and then going to the next family. But that's my opinions on that. But it was pretty decent. There are only a few nitpicks where Iris saved JB, which was also a form of death. They became friends, and then she's been trying to get away from the physical form of death. Just JB was an avatar of death. But that's the only thing I had. And then, like mentioning Kimberly from the other movies, and them not going to Kimberly for help. So that's the thing. Also, what they're having problems with, I'm saying, is the first two movies. The first three movies, they actually tried to help out their friends that were going to be the next person dying. They tried to do it in this movie too, but it seemed like the family was the mom, their granddaughter, and her brother were all trying to find their cousins, but also distracted trying to find them because there's so many different ways you can die in a hospital, right? But what happened to the simple fact that you could just, I know they were calling him and they didn't answer, but what's the simple fact of asking someone, hey, have you seen these people walk by? Oh, yeah, they're in that room. Like, do regular logic, but it wouldn't have a movie like that, I guess. But that's just in my rant on that. Hopefully, they make a second one, but if they don't, this is the only one that we get so far, and this is the last of the Final Destinations. So, again, if you like this video, put a like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and deuces.